All right. Well, welcome everybody. We have an apology to make. When we sent out reminders to people, we used Carissa Courtney's login. So many of you were coming in as Carissa Courtney, and so she's made the option for you to change your name. Live and learn. Zoom has been changing their logins and the security with Zoom. So we wanted to make sure that everybody had access, but then when we grabbed an invite, we had grabbed her invite. So now everybody's coming in as Carissa Courtney that uses that link. So we apologize, and feel free to change your name on the list. And we actually thought she's coming in twice. We weren't quite sure what was going on there. So a couple of people we removed by accident until we figured out what was going on. So again, we apologize for that. And, you know, just another aspect of COVID-19 and living and learning as we go, right? So I'm going to give people just a couple more minutes to file in, and then we will get started. Again, the format is going to be about 15 minutes of us talking about the resources that we found and how you can use them. And then 15 minutes for us to answer your questions. So please feel free to put your questions in the chat box and we will answer them at the end. I am Janet Courtney. I'm the CEO and founder of Lighthouse Therapy. And with me today, again, is Caroline Nuttall. And Caroline has lots of experience with as being an online director for schools. And Katherine Fugate is Ph.D. Was a special ed director for many, many years, and now she's a consultant. And we are so thrilled to have them with us today. So with that, I think I will just get started so that, because I know your time is valuable, I'm going to turn off my camera and we will get to the meat of things. So, today's topic obviously is finding resources. So where do you find them? That is our first question. So as we go in and, oh, Carissa, you want to change the slide for me? There we go. Where can you find them? So finding resources, you can find them in a lot of different places. These are places that I have typically, in the last 9 years of doing online services, have found them through associations, whether it's your own educational association or a professional association, through colleagues, through social media. I find a lot of resources in social media. People are really generous with and especially right now with the whole COVID-19 and sheltering in place, and everybody's struggling. There's lots of different groups out there that are sharing information. I know we have shared information as well. Internet search, if you're looking for something very specific, doing an internet search, Google is your friend when it comes to that. Also looking at ads, I noticed that the more you search for something in Google, the more likely it is that something else similar is going to come up. So, so paying attention to those ads once in a while. And then there's a lot of resources that are free right now, free to schools, free to teachers, free for subscriptions for a year. So pay attention to those as well. And then also universities. And I'm sure there's many, many more that I'm not even mentioning here, but those are the ones that I've found over the years. So, so what kind of resources are there out there? Online formats usually are websites, many, many different kinds of apps, whether those apps are on your computer or on a tablet or on an iPad, phone. Lots of different kinds of apps. Obviously, password secured sites. Like I said, those usually cost, but right now they're not. Many of them are not, or they're significantly reduced. YouTube is another place, and Vimeo also is another place where you can get some online resources. And then the next type is digital. Digital formats for online schools would be PowerPoints. This is what you're looking at right now, is a PowerPoint presentation. PDFs, that's probably the most common format that you're going to find for resources is PDFs. Ebooks are certainly very popular, and there's a lot of different ebook sites out there that you can go to, and you can sort, and you can by lexical level, you can sort by age of the child. It just depends on what you're looking for. So, and then most of those you have to log into, but again, those sites are free. Word documents, MP4s. Now, MP4s, for those of you that don't know, those are video files, and MP3s, which are audio files. And then flashcards. There are several sites out there that will let you make a flashcard deck, which is really kind of a cool thing. And then clip art and photos. So your JPEGs and your PNG files and clip arts. Be careful with your clip art though. If you're going to use it, make sure that you're using a free site if you're going to gather up a bunch of clip art, because you don't want to violate copyright. So, and like I said, most of this is free, and that's the part I love about it, is that you can go and you can look for it. I've written a couple of blogs actually on our website about finding free materials as well, and have some resources there as well. Most of those have been compiled into what I'm going to give you today, but in those 9 years that I've been doing online, I never paid for a resource. I didn't have to. There was just so much. There's just so much out there, so many materials out there. I just didn't have to. Just make sure that what you get, if you share it, that it's not something that's already been copyrighted, and it's not free just to you. But then you can also make your own. Use your own imagination. If you're crafty, if you're good with a computer, and the nice thing about that is if you make resources for your classrooms and you have time, and you don't have to do every single thing, and please don't reinvent the wheel. Like I said, it's free out there. But personalizing resources for your own classroom, that's a great thing, and the kids really, they love it when they see their own name or their own face pop up on something that you're doing. So it is something to consider. And then the next thing I wanted to share with you from my part of this presentation is just, this is a free resource for you that we're going to send to you on what do you do when things go wrong. This is a step-by-step solutions for common tech issues. So when you run a tech company, we have our own tech support, but we find that if we give this information out to our staff, to our therapists, they tend to be able to fix their own problems before they even have to call tech support. And what that does for you is it gets you back going. Your class gets back online quicker. So I just wanted to run through these quickly for you. First of all, the first thing we tell them is check your camera and your microphone. Make sure they're enabled, make sure that you're unmuted. Some of the headsets that are out there that people have actually have their own mute button on it, and that has been, all of a sudden you can't hear them, and it's like, check to see that you don't have a mute button there. Refresh your browser and make sure that your software is compatible with the browser. Our particular platform is only compatible with Chrome, Firefox, and Safari. So if someone were to try to log into our particular platform with Lighthouse on Edge, it just won't work. And you'll have lots of audio and video issues. The other thing you can do is log out of the software that you're using and come back into the room. And if that doesn't work, close your browser and reopen it. And if that doesn't work, then you can clear your cache and cookies on your browser. And you're like, oh, how do I do that? I have no idea how to do that. Actually, on the resource that we're going to give you, it actually will give you a shortcut to how to do that on Chrome, on Firefox, and on Safari. I don't know how to do it on Edge, I'll be honest with you, but you can. It's probably not that difficult if you go into settings, but that will be in there. The thing about that, though, remember, is if you clear your cache and your cookies, because those are the things that will cause issues with audio and video consistently, is if you have a lot of history in your browser. But if you clear those cache and cookies and you have saved passwords and usernames for a lot of different websites, make sure you have those somewhere else, because it will clear those out. But it will also, most of the time, clear out your audio and video issues. If that doesn't work, you can switch to a different browser. Always, you can restart your computer. Or if you're really having trouble and it's an older computer, you can try a different computer if that's available. Obviously, that's not always available to people, but it is an option as well. And then finally, when all else fails, right, you can contact tech support for the software that you're using specifically. So, and with that, I'm going to turn things over to Caroline Nuttall. She's going to talk to us about how to determine which items to use.
So this first slide is an example of a rubric or a checklist that you can use when receiving or finding a resource to determine whether or not it's a good fit. Out of kind of compiling 6 or more ones that I found online, and there will be a PDF version available to you so that you can utilize these questions. Each of them go over how does it meet your needs in terms of what's the purpose of this resource, the standards, how accessible is it to your students, does it promote deeper thinking, and then the appropriateness in terms of age and time. Each of those areas also has a spot that you can add keywords so that you can come back to it and figure out if this is the right fit. Originally, I had on the right-hand side poor, fair, good, and great. But if your resource you're finding is in the poor range for one or more of these questions, it probably is not a great fit for you. I know that I am guilty of this, and know many other teachers are as well, of gathering resources and not vetting them and then never getting around to actually using them. You can find other rubrics if this isn't a right fit online. You can just Google resource vetting rubric, and there's lots of options available. Once you have gathered the resources that you feel like you can use and have used a rubric similar to this to be able to figure out if it's a right fit, we need to go into how do I organize all of our resources. Instead of just keeping them in your downloads folder on your computer, we can figure out a way to organize it that makes sense to you, and so that you can get back to them and find them when you actually need them. So pick a way to group the information into folders, whether that be by grade level, by subject area, or by interest group, whatever works, and you can find it again easily. Some teachers teach multiple grade levels and multiple subjects, so you can have subfolders. For example, I might teach 3 different grade levels, so under my 3rd grade folder, I could have a social studies folder, a math folder, and so on. Rename the resource itself, the document or file, so that when you see that name, it reminds you of what is in the file itself, so you don't have to click and open everything in that folder to find the one resource that you're looking for. So many things that download can have just a series of numbers, that file 1234.pdf, rename it, say 3rd grade social studies, and then what the specific unit or lesson would be on. You can also make copies of a resource, so if it could fall under multiple of your folders and multiple units or lessons, make a copy of them. It's okay to have them in multiple places. You can also make a copy if you are deciding to edit the original resource. You can go into Save As for a Word doc if you have a PDF editor, and be able to save it as a new version and still have the original available to you. Once you have all your resources organized, now it's time to put them into your classroom. There's a couple different ways that you can have this resource to be able to use for your students. First, you can embed it. If it's, say, a YouTube video, you can embed it into a virtual classroom. Now that we would also err on the side of caution for copyright, if there's any copyright issues. Many of these resources that you're finding could be free to use for everybody, or free to use within your classroom, but not sharing the actual resource itself so that people can then share it with other people and so on. So when linking the resource, make sure you're cautious of where it goes and the intended audience. If you're uncertain as to the copyright availability, or B, if you're worried about your students not having the correct technology to be able to open one of your resources, you could do a screen sharing like we're doing right now with this PowerPoint and have your screen available and go through the resource with your students through a live classroom. And then finally, attaching a resource, that would be something like a PDF where a student would download and then be able to open. And again, that's based on the student's technology. And that leads us into our next slide regarding access for students. If you were here during last week's session, we talked about doing a survey or a scavenger hunt for our students and their families to be able to identify what software and hardware they have in the class in their home to be able to be available to be used in your virtual classroom. So thinking about what they can use to open and utilize these resources. Are there any other constraints? It could be a time constraint. It could be other constraints that you may foresee having that your students may not have access to. What's the best way I can deliver this lesson? Is this resource filler, or is it something that I can do using something that may not take as much time or software or hardware requirements to be able to see? What concerns do I have? Is there appropriateness? Is there anything that could be an issue? Some resources may have things that download with them, possibly spamware, making sure that any concerns are covered with this resource. And then finally, how will my students with disabilities be impacted when using this resource? Is there something that I can do to make sure it's accessible for all students of all learning abilities? I'm going to hand it off to Katherine. Thank you so much for your time.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I just wanted to be able to provide a snapshot, if you will, of some resources that both teachers and even parents can look at, see what the different programs are offered, the grade levels, the subject areas. These are not necessarily endorsements, but I have gone through the ones that are that we're sharing with you and have looked at them. Two that I'm particularly that I like is that the NCT and the National Council of Teachers of Mathematics have opened up free memberships right now during this crisis that we find ourselves in. So I think that is great, especially because they're addressing math fluency, calculation, and reasoning. So they're checking all those boxes. And then there's also Voyager Sopris. Voyager series is they have a lot of really powerful programs. They have a Step Up to Write, which goes to K through 12, and I think that is really critical right now. And of course, they have the VMath Live also available now for free. So those in particular, I think are really good resources to look at. Adapted Mind, if you're working with students with disabilities, might find this a little more accessible for some of your students or your own children, because it is really individualized. And then just last not least, if you want a thorough, comprehensive class program for your child or student, there's always Khan Academy, and they are just, it's a wealth of resources. It's free, and students who aren't maybe getting things from school can certainly get things from Khan Academy. All right, thank you.
All right, so this is Janet again. We're gonna open it up to questions. I did have one question already. Somebody asked if we would have access to this PowerPoint, and if you have if you've logged in and registered under your own name, even if you came in under Carissa's name, you will get an email. We'll have your email, and everybody will get a copy of the slides. Katherine has done an excellent job with breaking down many of these resources, so we'll have that one for you. I also have a list of resources, and like I said, be kind. We did it quickly because there were hundreds of them. So we tried to break them down by who would use them, what the audience would be, and what the resource was. So so feel free to look through those, and then of course use Caroline's rubric to decide. Don't get stuck going down that rabbit hole, because many times I've done that. I've been looking for something, and then I end up, it's an hour later, and I was like, how did an hour pass by while I was looking through these things? So so just try to find those things that are going to work for you. So if anybody has any questions, we will be happy to answer them. Just put them in the chat, and we will be glad to help in any way that we can. So those resources will be coming, and there will also be a copy of the video, a link to the video. We put it on our YouTube channel, so you'll have access to this video. And if you go to that YouTube channel, you will also find the previous 2 webinars, and then the next ones that we have will be coming up next week. We'll be talking about, next week is, I'm just losing my brain here. Thank you. Engaging students online, and then week 5 will be special education tips. And then week 6 will be specifically related to therapy services online. So, so those, as we go, we will make those available as we go through. So any questions we can answer for anybody, or have we done such a great job that nobody has any questions today? Does not look like it. All right. Well, so if you need any additional support, we are offering that support. And this is a link to my calendar. And if you have questions about anything specific, whether you in this video or in the previous videos, or something that may have piqued you, but your interest, or you just are struggling with something, feel free to send any of us an email. Or you can use this calendar link, and I'll be glad to spend 15 minutes with you chatting about your issue and making sure that you get an answer to you. Obviously, we want the whole reason behind this webinar series is to give you the tools that you need to, in a really difficult situation where no one knew they were going to be at. So, so certainly we want to offer that. Someone's got a question. Yeah. Oh, so yeah, the question was, when I tried to sign in using my computer, I got a message that the host had removed me. Yeah, that was because we apologize for that. You probably weren't here because you were one of the 2 that we removed by accident. We had a issue. When we sent out the reminders today, we sent them out through Courtney's invitation. So we thought there was a problem because it kept saying Courtney. So we were removing and we did it twice. So we apologize for that. It was our mistake. So, so we're gonna do that again next time, but we're just gonna put Lighthouse Therapy as the name. I'm gonna turn my video on. We're gonna use Lighthouse Therapy as the name instead of Courtney, so that if people, and the reason that we did that was because Zoom has been putting more security features in place. So we were trying to make sure that everybody could get in, and we had issues last week with people getting in. So we wanted to make sure, and then we did it wrong. So live and learn. So we're gonna do a fake person and just have them as Lighthouse Therapy. So if you try to get in that way, you will be able to change your name if you want your name there. If not, you can just leave it. But we just wanted to make sure that people had access. Because if you don't use the direct link, it'll ask you for a password. So, okay. And then the next slide is just a picture of us and our information. And there's each of our contact emails. So if you have a question, please feel free to reach out to us, use those emails, and we will be glad to answer your questions. And the additional resources that we have on this one specifically, some best practices for securing your virtual classroom. That one is specifically from Zoom. So if you are using Zoom and you're having I know Zoom bombing has become an issue for people, and I know there's been questions about security for Zoom. So always go back to your own district and and make sure that whatever they're telling you to do that you use. But this is a great way to make sure that your classroom is secure. And then the other two resources that we have are just links back to the webinar 1 and webinar 2. Okay. And I think that's it. So I think we're going to get done just a little bit early today. And don't forget, next week, sign up for our next one when we'll be talking about engaging students online. There's nothing worse than getting in a situation where your kids just aren't cooperating and feeling like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know, so this isn't how I teach. So how do I get them excited about it? How do I get them engaged? And how do you deal with different behaviors that you may be experiencing with different students? Obviously, they can turn you off, and they can't do that in a classroom. So we want to make sure that you have all the tools that you can to be able to engage them as best you can. All right. Everybody have a wonderful Thursday afternoon, and we will see you next week.